Bonjour! In the first part of the French knitting series, you've seen me choose the pattern that I'm going to knit in French, which is going to be Harry here, who I believe to be a ram. And with that, I'm going to actually attempt to start Harry today. So there are two different parts to Harry. There are his clothes, and then there's actual Harry. And I have bookmarked the pages of abbreviations so I can go back to it when I need to, because I sense my focus going a little bit. And I have also looked into some amazing yarn too. So shortly after I decided I was going to make Harry, I was taken to a yarn store where I found this recycled yarn. If I understand this correctly, they took I don't know how they recycled the fibers, but they took all these different recycled fibers and put them together in the same yarn, and it feels really nice. So this is nylon, cotton, acrylic, silk, and linen, which means it's going to be super soft, even though it has this bumpy look. And it kind of goes with this whole stonewashed look that the book keeps promoting. So I've got the yarn for Harry here, and then the yarn for Harry's clothes, even though I haven't rolled them into a ball because of circumstances. I'm going to put Harry's clothes back down. We're just going to focus on Harry for the moment. So it starts with Harry's body, which obviously makes sense. It starts with his head because it starts with tete, with la tête. And then it looks like it tells you to do his ears. And then the horns, then the body, then the arms, the legs, and then you put it together. Now, also, if you remember when I was going over this book, it was oh yeah, this is the same as, what's it called? It seemed like they had the same three patterns, the same body pattern. And then, they had differences depending on the animal. For the ram here, I think if I start with the arms and the legs, I can get used to doing the part in French. So I can kind of get used to reading it in French. So that way when it comes to a little bit of the differences, I know what is knit, what is crochet, even though it tells me to do the arm in second. But if you look at the picture of Harry here, if it's not being shined out, you can see this is kind of plain. This is where all the detail is, his body. So yeah, that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with his arms, which apparently are on page 14. So, Monter. All right. We're going right into it. Oh. There's an instruction. So it's avec les. So the needles. I'm not really caring about the size of the needles. It's going to be whatever size it ends up, which I may regret later for the clothes. But I think if I use the same needles for the clothes and the animal, I should be somewhere in the ballpark. Somewhere. Let me see. It starts with round 1, and then it says en du trave, and then it says la leven, envers, I'm going to make an educated guess here. Usually when you have like a first row and then it says like row 1 and it follows with like instructions kind of like this. This is what I'm like seeing right now. That instruction in English usually means this is the wrong side. Because usually when you start with the first row, the assumption is the first row, you're starting with the right side facing you, but I think it's just telling me to purl. I'm also going to make an educated guess on how I'm supposed to cast on. I could be wrong. But since this is not really something that's supposed to stretch, I have no problem doing the cable cast on here. So it wants me to do 14. Okay. And even though I don't entirely understand, I'm guessing, I think it just told me to purl. I think it's just telling me to purl, which makes sense because I can tell from the pictures that these are all in stockinette stitch. I've already lost count of how many stitches are on this needle. How many stitches do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Then it wants me to purl. Okay. Oh, it's having me start at the top of the arm and then go down. Okay. There we go. So now it looks like, oh, so E, is E the stitch? Or E is maybe just knit? Okay. So if I'm understanding this correctly, I'm seeing 1E, 1 og, I, 2E times 6, 1 og, 1E. Does the I stand for anything important? Oh, man. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 different types of increasing. And The one that I'm looking at is like augmentation intercalare per default. So it's basically saying this is the main way you should increase. Thing is, whenever she takes pictures, like whoever took pictures of this book, whenever it comes to the shoulders, they never get close to anyone's shoulders because they're all wearing shirts. Said this is the default way. I know what the default way is for me. I don't know what the default way is for someone else. But I know what I'd rather err on the side of. So there are two ways to actually like make a stitch. One is to actually like work 2 stitches into a stitch. One is to go to this space in between the stitches and pull the stitch up where you're actually making the stitch. Like if I was like working on a default, what I would actually do would be like work an extra stitch into the stitch and make it work. But in my gut this time, I'm feeling like I should actually pull in between the stitch. Like I should just attempt to make the stitch, especially since there's a different type of increase here. Okay. So we're going to knit 1. Then I'm going to go in between the stitch to pull another stitch through. Then I'm going to knit 2. And basically I just knit 2 and pull 1 stitch in between up until the very end when I should have 1 left, which makes sense. This is very evenly split. Now split the yarn here. There we go. And if I did this right, I should have 21 stitches on the needle. Which is very easy to check. I just count afterwards. Ooh. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There you go. And then for the next 44 rows, I just straight up follow this. I guess part of the thing with row 3 is the stitches got turned in different directions depending on whether I made the stitch or just straight up knitted it. So I have to pay attention to that so that way they all lie flat. Other than that, pretty easy breezy until I have to make the hands. There we go. So I will check back in with you later when I've done all the grunt work part of the arm. And then you actually get to see me do more of the figuring out the hand when I come back. Alright, I just finished perhaps one of the most blandest squares in existence, or rectangles. This isn't a square, it's a rectangle. Just to get to the fun part, which we have come to the instructions part again, which it has two different types of increases. Which, if I'm looking at the increases, I know there's different instructions. Like different abbreviations for the increases. But my assumption would be they're going in different directions, so that way the thumb lies flat. It looks like it's clearly I'm not getting something here, but you know what? I'm just going to do the same increase I've been doing, because like there are some things where if I was doing like a flat pattern for a sweater and then I did the wrong increase, it would show. But this is going to eventually be a rounded object. And it's like, if it was a decrease, it would probably affect it more because you're combining two stitches together. But when you're just adding them, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Maybe. We'll see if I regret it later. So it wants me to do 10 stitches, then increase them 1 and increase them 1, so I have 23. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll increase 1, then that, then we'll increase 1, and there should be 10 left. 2, 3. Yep. There we go. It wants me to purl, and then it wants me to increase, and then do a couple rows. So this way, it has a little thumb. It just doesn't have a stick at the arm. The thumb's not separate from the arm, but it is what it is. Oh yeah, I started a row counter. I wasn't going to keep track of this without it. I know what I'm like. You know what I was reminded of? So, during round 2 of college, I decided to study abroad. Like, ultimately, when it was all said and done, I got what I wanted from college. I got a degree, and I got to study abroad. So, while it wasn't everything that I wanted, I at least don't have any regrets about that. But while I studied abroad in Rome, which my school had a program in Rome, and I was studying art history, so it made complete sense. And even though it meant that I extended the time until my graduation, it was absolutely worth it. So now it wants me to do the same thing again, but with 11. Okay. So I think I had like 4 classes plus an internship while I was over there. And let's see. yeah, I had 2 art classes, an Italian class, because it's like if you didn't know Italian, you had to take it. And I didn't know Italian. And then I had an art history class, which was about Byzantine art. And the professor was a Belgian. So European professors in general operate differently than professors in the States. But I had to write a paper. I was writing a paper about architecture in Byzantine churches. And I think it was like my final paper. And he's like, all right, I got this perfect paper for you that you can cite in your paper. I'm going to lend it to you. You have to return it back. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can use all the help I can get. Thank you. And he's like, yeah, it's like, it's this French author. And it's like, cool, fine. That'll work. That doesn't really matter to me so much. And then he gives me the paper. And the paper was in French. And I was like, sir, I do not understand French as a language. How can I cite it if I don't understand? I was like, I told you it was in French. I was like, no, you told me it was a French author. And then, and then he said something about how, like, he mentioned several times throughout the semester about how American students are so spoiled. They expect everything handed to them. And, like, he mentioned, like, when he was going for his degree, his teacher just gave people magazine articles to give reports on, and they were all in Italian, and none of them understood Italian at the time, and they had to figure it out. And it was like, there's a difference between there's like a difference between coddling your students and setting them up for failure, and I think that crossed the line. Is having a professor just hand you something in other languages, like, translate this, without even knowing the language. Like, this is where you're going to get your information from. I mean, now we got the internet. We can figure it out that way. Not that professor was entirely bad. He was an interesting character, to say the least. And overall, I did relatively well enough in his class. And it was a fun class. We got to go on field trips all over the place. But that was like, come on, sir. It's kind of funny that I complained about now, but in fact, I'm kind of doing it here, you know? It's like in the same language that I protested about even. But there's a difference between trying to parse together a instruction manual versus trying to put together an academic article on architecture. It's like one of the life-changing experiences I had in that class was we got to go inside a catacomb. Not like, yeah, if you go into the public, they light up the catacombs and whatnot. No, he got us into a not open to the public catacomb, which, if he told us to buy flashlights beforehand, and I only found a kit of 3, so I brought 3. I bought the kit. It's like, I'll share it with my classmates. And then at the end, I had 3 flashlights. Like, I don't need this. But it was useful at the time. And one of my classmates had recently sprained her ankle. And this guy walked super fast. Usually what would happen is he would walk super fast. I'd be like right behind him, and everyone else would be 50 meters back. So, with this, like, we followed a guy to the catacomb, and suddenly we walk by, like, we're walking and we realize we've lost part of the group. And it's like, oh, and like getting lost in the catacomb was no business. It was like pitch black, and it included the girl with the sprained foot, like the sprained ankle, and the other teacher who joined on the trip. So the guide went back to go fetch them. And he found them, thankfully. They had the sense to just stay put when they realized they couldn't see anything. And when they got back, the teacher pointed me as like, "You're at the back of the line." And I was like, okay. I guess I'm the reliable one in this scenario, fine. I guess he had the feeling that if I were to disappear, like if I couldn't see them, I would probably say something. Anyway, he's still teaching there, as far as I know. He shows up on their Facebook page. It was actually during my class he made a vow never to go to the Vatican again. So he took us into the Vatican. Like, waiting for the Vatican is no joke. It's like one of the few times in my life I actually decide to stand in the line. Most of the time I see a line, it's like, not worth it. But that time it's like, okay, I'm here. I might as well see it, right? And he's like, you have to go for class. So it's like, get in the line early. So I get in the line. It's like, when you're in the line, it's like, I hope he's there when we get back. And then we look further in the line. He's standing further back. And he's like, well, I can't be later than the teacher. The teacher's standing behind me in line. And everyone else kind of showed up later, but they just either stood with me or stood with him. It was like, yeah, why force anyone to go all the way back to the line if it's a class and we all have to be together? It's just like, let's make it work, right? So we make it in. We pay for our tickets, I think. And then he asks the guide, realizes the room he wants is closed, and goes like, all right, this trip is wasted. We're going back to class. I'm like, there's nothing else we could talk about here. We just stood all that time in the line. We're not going to wait. It's like, nope. I was like, okay. So I ended up going back on one of my days off to stand back in that very same line so I could actually see other stuff in the Vatican. Which actually at the end of the line, the first thing I did was go to the cafeteria and eat food because it was a long line. And he was upset by the whole experience. It was like, I come here to look at some art, and the art isn't here. The art is on display, and you couldn't have put it on your website. I'm never coming back here. And he posted his rant on Facebook, and every single one of his Facebook friends liked it. Which is not something I could say for any Facebook post I've ever posted. But yeah, that was an intriguing time. Alright, so now I have to decrease. Twice, it looks. Looks like two different types of decreases. Okay. I do not understand. Oh. I understand better. Okay. So one is just a normal decrease and one is what we would typically do, the slip and purl over. So it looks like I do two and then I decrease. Okay. Yeah, there was one time we went on this field trip. And like, it was supposed to be a classroom day. But then he changed his mind less than 24 hours ahead of time. And I didn't see his note. And so I'm arriving at the classroom. It's like, where is everyone? And I check it. And they're all at this museum across town. It's like so far south. It's off my map. And it's like, geez, this was not enough of a warning, sir. So first I get him like this bitter soda that he liked. It's like, because he gave everyone like a hell of a time anytime they were late. And it's like, if they showed up like over an hour late into class, which was what was going to happen to me this day. So we're just going to decrease. Okay. I'm like, I don't want to put up with this. And he was like, something's not right here. I am missing an instruction. Oh, this is a different type of decrease. It does matter, apparently. Oh, I decreased 3 stitches at once, huh? Yeah, I decreased 3 stitches at once. Okay. Anyway, back to my story. So I get him that bitter soda that he likes, because he also complained Americans have too much of a sweet tooth. To have like an offering of as like a peace offering of, sorry I'm late, here's a minor inconvenience. Like here's a minor thing to deal with that inconvenience. And I ended up finding them just as they were about to leave that museum, and there was another stop, so I still had like half the class, but turns out he was just impressed that I managed to catch up with them. There you go. So that is the decrease. You can see we now have a little thummy thumb there. We have the amount of stitches we're supposed to have. Yeah, it's supposed to be 19. Let's see, 5, 10, 15, 19. Yes. So now I just do another 5 rows. No, 4 rows. 4 rows. Wait, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61. No, I was right. 5 rows. 5 rows. At the end of the semester, we had a trip to Ravenna to look at even more Byzantine architecture. And it probably comes as no surprise to you that I sleep with a stuffed animal. I mean, how many stuffed animals have you watched me make on this thing? That should not be a surprise. It should be expected at this point. And well, so of course the stuffed animal came along, and like it didn't quite fit in the bag, so the teddy bear's head was poking up. And the teacher's like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 23. He's like, by 23, my mother had 2 kids of her own. You are too old for a stuffed animal. And I'm like, we live in very different times, sir. So at the very end of the trip, we were waiting for a train to come home, and the train tracks were right there. And he's like, you know what? We could just take your teddy bear, and we can just leave it on the train tracks and let the train decapitate it for you. Force you to grow up. And I was like, no. And there happened to be a little touristy stand nearby, and they were selling some dolls. So I bought the brown-haired doll. Kind of like similar face to a Cabbage Patch Kid. Similar size to a Cabbage Patch Kid too, I think. But I got it in the plastic bag. I put it in his bag, and I told him like 20 minutes prior, and I told him that he could not look at it until we got on the train. Which means for at least a half hour, he walked around with a doll in his backpack after making fun of my teddy bear. So worth it. The next time we had class, he thanked me for the doll, but said he had to give it to his daughter because a man his age carrying a doll would be unseemly. It's like, oh, okay. All right. You know, this yarn pills quite a bit. I mean, I like that it's soft, but it's also pilling quite a bit. I think when I'm done, I'm probably just going to have to, like, roll over it and just go, like, just to get the extra fibers off. But it feels soft. I mean, it was going to with silk inside it. All right. So then it wants me to do 2 more rows after this. It'll actually be 3 along with the bind off row. So now it wants me, now this is like severe decreases here. It wants me to do 1 stitch, then 4 decreases, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it wants me to do 1 stitch, then it wants me to do 4 of those slip over purl ones. Pullovers. Not purl ones, pullovers. Works perfectly. And then make one. Voila. And then it just wants me to purl the last row, which oh, that's why it doesn't have me bind off. Okay. This row that I'm doing now, when it just has me like purl each one and it just acts as a breather, it's like, we did a lot of decreases, we need we need some space before you attempt some more complicated stuff again. So it wants me to cut, it doesn't want me to bind off. They're thinking, the designer's thinking here. It wants me to cut a long strand of yarn, which is hard to know exactly how much you would need in this scenario, but I'm going to guess that is fine. And then it wants me to go through all the stitches, one by one, and pull them tight that way. So, and then from there, I'm supposed to just sew them all together. Which I typically would just keep on knit. I would just bind off and keep on knitting at this point, just save all the sewing for later, but hey, I'll do this step. There you go. Ooh. There we go. The arm. So I imagine it wants me to sew it inside out and then I flip it back the other way. I will sew that at a later time because I kind of want to keep on knitting right now. I'm in a groove. We will save that. So right under that is, well, first I have to reset this bad boy. Great thing is when you get to 99, you don't have to, get to 99, you don't have to do the extra do because it goes straight to 0 again. Of course, it means if I knit over 100 rows in a project, I have to remind myself I'm in this 100th of a row and hit this 100th of a row, but a row typically doesn't have more than 300 rows in it. So it's not that big of a problem. It's very easy to remember. You can just look at it. So, oh boy. There is a lot. There is a lot. Yeah. So I know I need to make 2 of the arms, but I think I'll just make the other arm off screen because why? We already did the important part. So now we're just going to make another leg. So it wants me, same needle, same color, it wants me to put on 20 stitches. And then start with a purl again. And then the increases start like mad. Yeah. And then I see from like the picture with these other ones, like these other animals have contrasting feet. But I didn't see any like change yarn instructions. But if you look at Harry here, our little ram, like underneath that picture, his feet are all the same color. So I'm going to do that because I bought the yarn not knowing. Like, I bought a skein of each color yarn hoping that would be enough. And I kind of want to save as much of this yarn as possible for Harry's body because I don't know how much yarn that stitch is going to eat up. I kind of know that I'll have enough for all the limbs and the head and the ears with this cream yarn, or I'm hoping I will have enough. Knitting does not eat up as much yarn as crochet. Crochet is like the worst yarn eater in the world. It takes up so much yarn. But knitting doesn't take up as much. Mostly because you don't have to like recreate the loop each time. You can just create like a bunch of loops and keep them going. Oh man, I couldn't knit for over a week. I missed it. I really missed it. I mean, I still tried to crochet during that time. I probably shouldn't have crocheted during that time. But it was amazing. It's amazing to knit. After, like, if you're in a position where you're not able to knit for a while and then you're able to come back and start knitting again, it's like amazing. Four, 5, 10. This is going to be 15. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This has the same set of parentheses in front that it had with the other one, which makes me feel more confident in my interpretation of that as row 1 starts on the wrong side. Wait, I do actually have 20 here, right? 10, 20, 30. Totally wrong number counting system, but it achieved the same effect. In my mind, I often confuse 5s and 10s. I don't know why, I just do. It just happens. There are many times I try to tell someone it's 5 o'clock and I end up saying it's 10 o'clock. J's and G's are really bad with that too. I was once in a trivia contest where I had to say the postal abbreviation was NJ. And I knew it was NJ. But my brain didn't send the correct information to my mouth, and we lost the point because I said the postal abbreviation for New Jersey was NG. All right. So now what it looks like is it has me do a stitch, then an increase, then 6 stitches, 2 stitches plus 1 increase 2 times, then 8 stitches, increase, then 1 stitch, which, I mean, it doesn't, oh, I was about to say, it doesn't look symmetrical, but the fact that it doesn't have you do an increase between the 6 and the 2 stitches means it will be 8 and, okay. It will be symmetrical. Okay, so I just do the 1 stitch. And that assumption about how to do the increases seemed to work last time. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we do the 2 more. 1, 2. I increase. I do the 2. I increase, and then it should just be 8, and I should have 9 left on this needle. I do. It's nice when it's like the math just works out, you know? It's like the numbers do what you expect them to do. That's how it should be. I did do the increase there. Goody. So now, at this point, because I know there's 8 and there's only 1 left, I don't really have to count. I can kind of, I don't have to count up to 8. I can kind of just, I try to use like location whenever possible, like instead of necessarily counting from like the longer direction, I'll try to get the location from the shorter direction. So it's like, in this case, it was 8 going this way, but I knew I had only 1 that way. So if I just work up to the last stitch without doing the last stitch, then I know I'm in the right spot. If that makes sense. Anyway, now we just do our purl breather row. You did all this complicated adding stitches. Give us a chance to redeem these stitches and also make sure all these loops are facing the right way, because, you know, when you added the stitches, the loops are twisted in a different direction than when you knitted them all. Like here. Ha-ha! Caught it! And here. There you go. So this is working a little bit differently than the arm. So the arm started at the shoulder and went down to the hand, while the legs seem to start at the feet, and then they're going up, which I can tell from the fact that there are individual instructions for most of the rows until the very last one where it goes like from 22 to 89. Which, oh, that's rows. That's not stitches. It's like, there's no way there's going to be 68 stitches on this needle at all during this part of the ram. So now, oh boy. Okay. This part of the knitting pattern looks like when you're completing an algebraic equation and it's like they throw in the parentheses and it's like, all right, let's solve the parentheses from left to right. Let's just look through this whole equation and see what the order of operations is, because I know we got to multiply before I add. Although with knitting, like, you have to go in order. You can't necessarily go like, I want to do this second part of the pattern first and then this first part, because there's a reason it's written in that order. Anyway, so I do one stitch and then I increase one. And I do one stitch and then I increase one. And then it wants me to do 6 stitches just straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then wants me to do the 1 and increase 1 2 more times. So it's like 1, increase 1, 1, increase 1, and then 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then the 1 stitch, increase 1 2 more times. So 1, 2, and then 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then it's 1, and increase 1, 1, and increase 1, and then just 1. Whew. So if I did this right, I should have 32. Yeah? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 32. All's right with the world. Now we just have our purl breather row. Oop. The yarn isn't squealing, that's nice. I just got the clicky clackies of the needles. Maybe my tension was just too much for crochet. All right. So now with row 6, you thought the fun was over. We get to increase again. Okay. Almost growing a little bit exponentially. So I got 2 stitches and 1 increase 2 times. So I got 2 stitches and then I increase 2 stitches, then I increase, and then I do 5 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I do the 2 stitches plus 1 increase 2 more times. That's 1, 2. Yeah, 2 more times. Then 1, 2. Increase. They're lining up with the previous increases, which is nice. Then I do 4. And then I do 2 increases. No, and then I do 2 stitches, 1 increase 2 more times. It's good like when you're doing something and the pattern starts reflecting, like you can kind of see where the point of symmetry is and it's starting to look like the reverse of what you just did. It's like, ooh, we're over the halfway point. I just lost my place as I said that. Well, I'm going to say that's 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then, yeah. Not completely lost. I found our spot again. Man, I'm good. Then we have our breather row. Now it could have been giving me a little bit more in-depth. Well, we know it's been giving me more in-depth instructions that I haven't been able to understand. But it seems like I'm getting it. Okay. Oh, that's row 7. And it just gets better and better, people. Oh, man. I mean, text-wise, it still looks the same. So it wants me to do 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and increase twice. Then 1, 2, 3, then increase. Then just 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I were to guess what I was working on right now, I would say that the sides of the feet are like the biggest parts where I don't increase, and it's having me increase for like the heel and the toe. Which makes sense. Now it wants me to do the 3 stitches plus increase 1 2 more times. So that's 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, then increase. Then it wants me to do 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the same thing twice again. So 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase. I'm guessing the person who wrote this pattern is like, how can I write this in a way that I can put as much of this in brackets as I can to be repeated, so I don't have to like write it all out or write all these confusing things, and make it just like more systematic. So now I got the 4, 2, 3, 4. Then it's the 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now this, it just wants me to work in stockinette stitch for a while, so I'm going to take a quick break. I'll come back when it's time for me to start decreasing and see how it is. I mean, their decreases seem a little bit less complicated than all the incremental increases that they gave me. So we'll see how it turns out. Okay, I'm back after a short interlude, and you can see how it's just like bursting right here. Like, it can't really lie. Well, with all the increases I did, it would never be able to lie flat, which I guess it's a good thing it's never going to lie flat. So now, like, I was looking ahead at the instructions, and there's a row that's, like, it looks like it's easy up until row 20. Row 20, that's where they do something wholesale. You see, I think rabattant is to bind off, because it has me bind off the stitches at the end of the pattern. It's like the same verb. Anyway, I shouldn't be worrying about this. I'm still on row 14. So, row 14 is simple enough. I just count 19. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, so that would be 5, 10, 15. Yep. Now it wants me to do the purl over. And then just 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And then wants me to do the decrease the other way. And then it's just 19 again, which I don't have to count because if I did it right, it should be even. Now, of course, this sometimes comes to bite me in the butt when I haven't done it the right way, but I don't think that's the case right now. So at first it seems like it's a gradual decrease, and then suddenly it's like, boom! Take off 18 stitches at once. That part, I'm kind of unsure at how they do it. But if worse comes to worse, I can engineer it for myself. $15 is just like, let's give you a breather. I can tell they actually want those 18 stitches gone because it's kind enough to include like the actual number of stitches that are supposed to be on the needle at the end of each row when there's like an increase or a decrease. And I can see it goes from 42 to 22. So it's like... There you go. Let's not forget to stretch that out. Sometimes when you like knit really fast and you forget to stretch out, the hand prevents the yarn from going further down the needle, so it all just gathers up in your hand. And it's like, oh, we gotta stretch it. We gotta spread it out. We can't just have all the stitches here, because the more stitches you have towards the points, the more likely they are to fall off. And when you put that much effort into something, you don't want it to fall off. Like 3 stitches fall off. It's like, fine, I can easily get the 3 stitches. 20 stitches fall off, that's that's a task to get them back. One of my knitting friends is really good at just like, you give her a set of like knitting that's completely off the needles, and she'll just rip it back to where you want it to go and then can put them back on the needles. That's really impressive to me. All right, so for 16 we do our 19 again. Oh, okay. So for 16 we do the 19 again, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now you are decrease. Then we do 4, And then we our other type of decrease. This is going to be a big guy. I just realized I haven't even left the foot part of the leg to go to the leg yet. This is going to be a big guy. It's like the size of an actual human baby. You know, you see pictures in books and you don't realize like how, like, you can kind of have a sense, but of how big something might be, but without like a reference to something else that you know the set size to, it can be more difficult to know what that size is going to be, which is why it's really like the best art history books include scales next to the pictures so you can actually see how big the picture is in its actual environment if you're unable to visit it yourself. Because I mean, we would all like to be able to visit all of the other different places in the world, but unfortunately not everyone has that luxury, so having that scale brings the knowledge to people who are unable to make the trip. But sometimes when you just start knitting something with like the yarn and then you see how big it's going to be, it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be that big. And like, you see this up against my hand right now, right? This is my hand towards this. This is just the foot. And the foot's not done yet. I mean, this is the arm. So, this ram's gonna be big. Probably like the same size as Kermit the Frog, honestly. Kermit the Frog is bigger than you think he is in person. That was my birthday gift one year, was to go to the Museum of the Moving Images and see the Muppet exhibit. It was like the very last day it was on display. I can tell you, seeing those Muppets in person is like, it's amazing. Okay. Oh. I get it now. I think maybe not. No. No. That still doesn't make sense. I no longer get it. Okay. Boy, that was short. You see, I thought, my understanding was this was the toe and these were the heels. But then I thought, like, maybe this. I mean, I see so many bottoms of the feet and they all connected. And I don't see any seams on the legs, which means they are hiding the backs of the legs from me. I might have to improvise a little bit compared by the picture. Okay. We've got 2 more rows to get through, and then I can fully go into this is what I don't get mode. Because I get the instructions up until then. Especially since I'm only decreasing in the one area. The one area has to be the toe. forgot to start counting. Well, I can do like an estimate that I'm getting close. I probably just hit it. 5, 10, 15, 19. I did. Okay. There we go. So the 19th row just wants me to purl. So I guess part of the problem with the 20th row, yeah, I can start talking it through, so hopefully by the time I get to it, it will make more sense. So this part right here, this is clearly going to be the toe, yeah? It's like it's sticking out, it's clearly going to be the toe. And the instructions have been relatively symmetrical up until this point. Then it wants me to do 11 stitches. And then it wants me to do 8 stitches. Then decrease 1. Then 1 decrease, and then that. And then it wants me to cast off 18 stitches. But that's one whole side of the leg, and that's not how it would work. Like, when I look at pictures of the legs, they follow around relatively seamlessly. And if there's like a sudden decrease, it's right at the top of the foot, which happens in the middle of the foot. But I'm reading the bind off as the last part of the instruction. Also, does TT stand for something that I don't know about? That's a new... Toots? Toots? Oh, so the knit stitches and draught and les and vers is purl. Are there pictures? That explain things. Instead of just having like a freak out on camera. Even as entertaining as that is. Alright, so this looks like to be the troubleshoot section, which, I mean, I've gone through this book before, but I guess I must have skipped that part. That's sewing it together. That is assembling the animals. And that's the start techniques, okay. Oh, they have a little special section on my little ram here. How to put on the horns. Their cast on method is not the same cast on method I'm using. They're using the easy way. Sure a lot. Oh no. They're not. They're using the long tail. Long tail cast on and cable cast on, which is what I ultimately decided to do, end up having the same effect. So that's fine. They show how to knit an I-cord. They show the mattress stitch. They show how to attach in different directions. They show how to use different colors. Yeah. Nope. I am completely on my own here. Okay. So I guess the question is, how do I get the effect that I want? I mean, this is what I'm seeing, yeah? I don't know how well you can see this, but there's like, the decrease clearly happens on the top of the foot. And if I go to the next page, to the picture of the duck that I complained about in the last video, you can kind of see, it looks like it's bound off in the middle there. Oh. I have two different paths I can go with this. One is I can attempt to do it all in the same row, which is what it's suggesting that I do. Or two, I know how to get that effect, but it's going to take more than one row. Which could affect how the shoes fit later on, because our little ram guy has shoes. But it shouldn't be too much of a difference. Because I don't want to take it off. I should have 42 on it right now, yeah. So I got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 42. I do. Okay. Oh. I get they're trying to tell me a way to do it so it's seamless. I'm probably going to need like a double pointed needle. Yeah, so let me at least do the 11 stitches. Oh, okay. Oh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm gonna reach, I think this is my double pointed needle stash. Yeah, there we go. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't necessarily want to pull it, but this is going to be inside the piece, yeah? So we're going to try something here, and then it wants me to decrease up this way. Then wants me to decrease this way. And then if I were doing this, I would do the 3 needle cast off. First, we're going to make sure that that's loose enough to bend the way I want it to. There we go. Ah. And we all want it to end back up on this stitch. All right, this needle. Eventually. I think I'm going to need another needle to do what I want to do. Don't escape. So we go through that. Go through that. Ha! Then boom, boom, boom. Yes. This is how we're doing it here. Ha 3. 4, 4. And on the other side, I should have 11 stitches. More like, oh no, that was a 3 needle cast off. It just took 4 needles. There we go. Voila. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Thank you, thank you. Please applaud. I know I can't hear you, but please applaud. That's going to be our little leg. And I mean, there's a little ledge right there, but there's a ledge on our little animals too. So I don't feel so bad. It looks very similar to what it's supposed to be. So now It wants me to do 10 stitches and then decrease and then 10 stitches. And it wants me to do it in purl this time. Strange, it wants me to do it on the purl side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. I don't know what that abbreviation stands for, but I understand what it wants me to do. It wants me to do this, then that. Or no. I'm on the decrease side. I can decrease through all 3 stitches at once. Boom. There we go. And then 10. We have a little foot. Look at that. Oh, at this point, the rest of the pattern is literally just straight up stockinette. You don't need to see that. I finished the leg. It's a lot longer than I was expecting it to be, so I just went ahead and finished the other leg, and I also just finished the limbs while I was at it. And there are like lots of little rough pieces that look like straw stuck in it. I guess that's why it's recycled fibers, because they're recycling everything here. But I kind of wish it didn't have that like straw fiber-esque in there. Also, this pills like crazy. Like, you can probably see it best if I like lift up like my pants leg right here. You can see it looks like I have a pet. But I think this is going to be enough for this part. Next time I'm going to work on some other parts of the ram. That was today's entertainment. Have a nice day, and until next time, au revoir.